The film begins by showing a woman named Liezel. She works as a marketing agent in one of the property companies. When he wanted to go to work, boarding skipper named Arnell was waiting for him to make Naga boarding rent debt, which is in arrears for a month. At that time Liezel reasoned that she had no money, then she promised to pay the rent when she returned to work. When I arrived at the office, Liezel also attended a meeting that followed the entire marketing and leadership of the same manager. They're all the marketing that penetrates the minimum sales target. Meanwhile, Liezel had no property sales at all that month. The manager also told Liezel that in the middle of achieving the target, it was only 3 months, and if it was more than that Liezel was fired. Finally, Liezel promised that she would try to improve her performance and sales that month. After meeting her co-worker Liezel named Dan, pleasantries asked what happened. He then added that there was nothing Liezel could tell him. But Liezel instead answered him arrogantly that she didn't need any help, because he is the best marketing of the past period. Hearing that, Dan finally said that it was a past achievement so that Liezel should know herself if she was currently on the verge of dismissal. After work, it turns out that the boarding house guard is already waiting for him to collect Liezel's debt. But because Liezel has no money, she secretly enters her dorm room without the knowledge of the housekeeper. The next day the manager introduced a new marketing manager named Susan. Susan is the best former marketing from her company's competitors. Susan's presence made Liezel feel very envious, because since Susan's presence there she always gets a lot of customers and becomes the best marketing at the beginning of the first month of work. This led to Liezel being warned by her manager. The manager said he would fire Liezel if she didn't try harder. Liezel, who did not accept, finally secretly followed Susan and saw her marketing techniques. When Susan was with prospective buyers of her property, it turned out that all the prospective buyers were men. Initially Susan explained about the property in a reasonable and normal manner. In the middle of Susan's explanation of the advantages of her property, the buyer who had failed to focus on Susan asked about the marketing promos offered in each of her property advertisements. It turns out that the promo in question is that every buyer who has definitely bought will be given the services of entertainers by Susan. As a bonus, a smile from Susan also signifies the agreement of the purchase of the property, and you already know what the next scene is going to be. After Susan gave a promo gift from marketing for her customers, Liezel approached Susan by saying that she already knew Susan's cunning marketing techniques. Susan is shocked, and asks Liz to keep this a secret. Susan also added that she was forced to do this just to get more money for the treatment of her son who has heart disease. Liezel did not care about all the reasons Susan said. She then left Susan and just left. After work Susan also picked up her son who she entrusted to a neighbor named Dennis. Dennis asked why Susan came late and looked gloomy. Susan also told me that her dirty marketing techniques had been known by her co-workers. He also plans to find another job. When they were chatting, Susan's son, who looked lethargic, came out to his mother. Susan finally came home with her son. Elsewhere, Liezel goes to the housekeeper to ask for a lock on her room. But Arnell refused the request, because Liezel didn't keep her promise to pay the cost. Arnell also gave another option where if Liezel wants to do her wish Arnell, then the payment in arrears will be considered paid off. Having no other choice, Liezel finally agreed to the offer, which was really troubling. After that Liezel, who had not reached the sales target, finally went to the club while drinking to relieve stress. There she got acquainted with a handsome man with tattoos. Then Liezel tried the marketing tricks carried out by Susan. For the first time, the effort was fruitful. Where the next day the handsome man with tattoos bought 3 apartment units, and immediately given a gift of entertainer services by Liezel. Her colleagues also praised the greatness of Liezel, who could quickly soar their sales, and now she has reached the sales target. Susan then approached Liezel and said that she knew Liezel used the same marketing tricks as her. Then Susan told Liezel to shut up and cooperate with her. But Liezel, who was still jealous of Susan's achievements, then refused Susan's invitation, and that's when they became rivals and fought for the #1 position in the marketing field where they worked. Long story short, Susan and Liezel compete with each other in getting a lot of customers. Until at one moment they met a prospective conglomerate customer in the same place at a nightclub. There the two people claimed not to know each other. Liezel slyly spilled a drink on Susan's shirt. While Susan went to the toilet, Liezel secretly put something into her rival's drink. Susan also drank the drink that had fizzy powder put into it. It made Susan immediately fainted. Then she was taken by the prospective customer's nephew to enjoy the beauty of her body. The next day Liezel was very happy because she had gotten a conglomerate client who bought all the apartment units. So she officially passed Susan's achievement. Finally she got the title of Best Marketing from the company and got a lot of bonuses that month. Not long after that Susan came and invited Liezel to talk to her face to face. Susan was very angry with the treatment of Liezel, who cheated in finding customers. Liezel didn't care about all of Susan's words. Even though Susan had said that she was working hard for the sake of her sick child. Liezel still did not sympathize with her, even arrogantly warned that it was the result of Susan's own actions, who bravely competed with her in becoming the #1 marketing where they worked. A few days later, while Susan was working, she got bad news from Dennis that her son was referred to the hospital because his son's illness was getting worse and must be treated with surgery. But unfortunately Susan has no local government insurance. So all of Susan's savings are also increasingly lacking to pay for the cost of the operation. She also tried to call all her prospective customers, but none of them wanted to buy her property unit. Until not long ago Susan's child was critical, while Susan finally took the wrong path. Susan also met her boarding house neighbor, who worked as a taxi driver, and told him to steal Liezel's money. In exchange she would have sex with the taxi driver as her reward. The neighbor agreed and immediately carried out the action. Then she took Liezel to a deserted place and robbed all the bonus money from Liezel's work at that time. But in the action the taxi driver accidentally hit Liezel, which resulted in Liezel dying. Then the next day the taxi driver hurriedly gave all the money from the robbery to Susan, and just pulled out. Susan saw the news on TV about Liezel, who had died. Susan seemed to feel very guilty about the incident. But for the sake of her dear daughter's recovery, she has no other choice. Fortunately so far the police have not received clear clues and suspects or evidence in the Liezel case. 6 months passed. It was seen that Susan successively became the best marketer at work, so that she got a lot of bonuses that made her economy even better. Then the movie ended with the manager introducing a new marketer in the company, where the figure of this new employee was very ambitious and arrogant, and had a very high motivation to become Susan's rival. And it also made Susan remember Liezel, who was exactly like that. Also, and the movie ends.